Whether you're a Disney World aficionado or you're a new recruit to the team, there are a few things around the park that need a bit more explaining to really get it. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. Not everything at Disney World is straightforward. Some rules can be a bit confusing, and if you're not a Disney diehard, there are a few rides that might have you scratching your head thinking, why is that so popular? Truthfully, there are a few things on this list that some of our team members still aren't too sure about. So here it is, rides in Disney World that need some explaining. First up, why is Figment a thing? If you're not up on your Disney cult classics, don't worry, we've got a few more coming up to school you. You might be wondering why exactly Journey into Your Imagination with Figment exists and why people seem to have such an affinity for this little purple dragon. Well, if you never rode the original version of this ride, you're missing out on all the reasons why Figment's a thing. The original attraction, which ran until 1998, Journey into Imagination, was a whimsical journey with the eccentric inventor, the Dreamfinder, and his sidekick Figment. There were some awesome animatronics, impressive effects, and the coolest rainbow tunnel when you exited the ride. In 1999, the ride reopened with Eric Idle leading guests on a tour of the Imagination Institute. There was only a brief cameo by Figment, and the signature song One Little Spark was missing, and people got mad. Figment was added back in pretty quickly, but the ride is still way shorter and way different from the original, so really people are crazy about the 80s and 90s version of this ride, and not so much the current one. However, we still think people would riot if the ride closed down for good. Next thing that might need a little explaining, why does the People Mover exist? The Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover is far from the most thrilling ride in Disney World. Like the name implies, it moves people around Tomorrowland, but it just takes you in a big circle around the land and drops you right back where you got on. A few of you may be asking, what's the point? The Disney World version is based on the original that opened in Disneyland in 1967, which was closed in 1995 to be replaced by the very short-lived Rocket Rods. But the Magic Kingdom version opened in 1975 and is still around and continues to have shorter lines than nearly everything else in the park. But here's the backstory. The People Mover is actually something Walt wanted to include as a major mode of transportation in his original idea for Epcot. And you can actually see the original model when you ride the People Mover. In addition to the dose of history, this ride is one of the best places to just have a sit in the middle of the day. You get a very nice breeze while you get to people watch over Tomorrowland, and you also get a peek inside Space Mountain and Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin. If you've never ridden it before, give it a try on your next trip. It's perfect when you've got some time to kill before your next Fast Pass. Okay, so why does Peter Pan's flight have crazy long lines? From a Magic Kingdom ride that never has a line to one that always has long lines, we're talking Peter Pan's flight. It's a little crazy that an opening day ride, yeah, it's been around since 1971, has lines nearly as long as Magic Kingdom's newest coaster. So why is that? People love it. It's the last original dark ride in Magic Kingdom. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and Snow White's Scary Adventure have both been closed to make way for Winnie the Pooh and some more princesses. So this is the last nostalgic dark ride we can experience in Florida. Beyond that, capacity for this attraction is pretty low. Only around 800 guests can ride per hour, as opposed to the 2,000 who can ride Space Mountain every hour. Plus, it's a ride the whole family can enjoy as there's no height restriction. So it's one of the harder fast passes to get in the park, but if you do find yourself waiting in line, don't worry. There's some really cool technology to keep you entertained while you are in line, so you can check it out in this video next. But overall, people love Peter Pan, everyone in the family can ride it, and the capacity of the ride is really low. So those three together make it have really long lines. All right, next one. What's the deal with Stitch's Great Escape? Okay, Stitch's Great Escape was kind of a theater in the round attraction in Magic Kingdom's Tomorrowland that opened in 2014, replacing the much scarier extraterrestrial, it's hard to say that word, extraterrestrial alien encounter. After a short pre-show, you would enter a circular room where Stitch from Lilo & Stitch was held captive. He escapes. Spoiler alert, but you might have guessed that from the name. And seat restraints make it feel as if he's jumping on the audience's shoulders and running around the room with pitch black darkness, by the way. Not surprising to many of us, this show closed in 2018 with little forewarning. It's most recently been a character meet and greet location for Stitch, but otherwise, this building is kind of just sitting empty and taking up a ton of space in Tomorrowland. We've recently spotted some permits that indicate demolition work at the address of Stitch's Great Escape, so perhaps we'll see a new new ride or show here in the near future. Or the permits could be something super boring, like work on a backstage room. Until Disney gives us word, we'll still be wondering what the deal is with this space. All right, why do so many people love It's a Small World? For some people, It's a Small World is a hard pass. Even thinking about it can get that song stuck in your head. But for others, it's a top must-do ride for each and every visit. So why are we so divided on this attraction? This one is another based on history and a love of Disney nostalgia. The ride first debuted at the 1964 World's Fair along with Carousel of Progress and was a salute to UNICEF. It was originally called Children of the World. The entire thing was later moved to Disneyland, and a Disney World version opened along with the Magic Kingdom in 1971. Mary Blair, who was one of Walt Disney's favorite artists, designed the stylistic elements of the ride. She also worked on Peter Pan, Cinderella, and Alice in Wonderland. Plus, you'll see a mural of hers at the Contemporary Resort. And that earworm song, it's written by the Sherman Brothers, who created many of the songs we Disney fans know and love, from Mary Poppins to The Jungle Book and plenty of songs you'll hear around the parks. For Disney history buffs, it's a treasure trove, and hopefully, even if you don't love the ride, you've discovered a newfound respect for the history it has. All right, number 6, why is Pirates of the Caribbean different in Disney World and Disneyland? Pirates of the Caribbean wasn't originally supposed to be in Disney World, believe it or not. Since it was already so close to the Caribbean, Imagineers didn't think people in Florida would be interested in that ride. But with other dark rides like Peter Pan's Flight and It's a Small World coming over from Disneyland, East Coasters wanted a version of Pirates of the Caribbean too. So in 1973, the ride opened in Disney World, but it wasn't quite the same as the Disneyland version. To start off with, the rides are located in different lands. Disneyland's version is found in New Orleans Square, not far from the Haunted Mansion, and the queue is mostly outside. In Disney World, the ride caps off one side of Adventureland just before you head into Frontierland. The ride and queue are located inside the Spanish Fort Castillo del Moro, and the entire surrounding area has a pirate theme. Tortuga Tavern is just across the walkway. Both attractions follow the same storyline, more or less. You're traveling back to the time when pirates roamed the seas, pirate ships attack a fort, there's pillaging, plundering, and the sort of recent addition of Jack Sparrow, he came in 2006, to tie in the film franchise, plus the updated auction scene featuring Red the Pirate. But Disneyland's version was almost double the length at over 15 minutes long. In Disney World, the ride is only about 8 minutes long, so you lose several scenes that are in the original. There's no Blue Bayou restaurant in Disney World, so there's no Blue Bayou scene. There's not quite space in front of the Florida Pirates of the Caribbean to fit a restaurant, but there's more than just a float through bayou happening in the Disneyland version that makes it different. After the bayou, the Disneyland version drops guests not once but twice as the boat winds through dark caves. They're super, super cool. I love this section of the Disneyland Pirates of the Caribbean. And then you pass by treasure troves and pirate skeletons. The Disney World version is also missing one of the most impressive and simplest Imagineering tricks, the scene with the skeleton in the hanging cage, who magically comes back to life as your boat sails past and you enter into the middle of a pirate battle. It's actually a Pepper's Ghost illusion like what you see in Haunted Mansion. We've got a whole video on Imagineering tricks if you want to know how that one works. In Disney World, right after the first drop at the beginning of the ride, you're plunged right into the battle outside the fort. The Disneyland version also features an extended ending with pirates drunkenly shooting guns in the midst of a whole lot of gunpowder. Why so many differences? Planning and space. After parkgoers voiced their disappointment about the Disney World version, it was completed in just 2 years on a plot of land not originally meant for the ride. New Orleans Square was designed with the ride in mind, though it was originally intended to be a wax museum, but that's a whole other story. Number 7, why does the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland get a holiday overlay but not in Disney World? Disneyland gets some pretty fun overlays on some classic rides during the holidays, namely the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay of Haunted Mansion, where familiar ghosts are joined by characters from the Tim Burton film. East Coasters have been asking for years, why not bring the holiday version to Florida? Well, Disney World does get a few holiday overlays, but they tend to not make big changes to the attraction. Jungle Cruise becomes Jingle Cruise with Santa hats on a few animals and a few different jokes, but overall the ride doesn't change. During the 2019 Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, the Tomorrowland Speedway, the Mad Tea Party, and Space Mountain all had some holiday additions, but they didn't change the fundamental attraction. It was mostly music, lights, and the holiday decorations. Overall, the storylines and attractions stay the same. But the Haunted Mansion overlay changes the characters and the story, so it's pretty different from the original over there in Disneyland. If someone only visits Disney World once and their trip is between Halloween and Christmas when the Haunted Mansion changes in Disneyland, they'd never get to see the original ride if Disney World did have the overlay too. Since Disney World is more of a destination park, whereas Disneyland is primarily for locals, many more visitors will only get one shot to ride the Haunted Mansion in Florida. While the overlay is cool, nothing quite beats the original, so that may be why they don't do a full overlay of the Haunted Mansion in Disney World. Now, why is Space Mountain better in Disneyland? We're going to start this one off by saying it's different, not better. But if you've been on both versions of this coaster, you know exactly what we're talking about. Both rides are indoor coasters in the Tomorrowland section of the park. Guests whip through the dark with sudden drops and quick turns, but besides that, the rides are pretty different. The ride systems are different fundamentally. Unlike many rides, the Disney World version is actually older than the Disneyland version. The ride originated in Florida in 1975 and was later added to Disneyland in 1977. The Disney World ride is based off of the steel track coaster design of the Matterhorn bobsleds. The ride vehicles are set up the same, with guests riding one behind the other, and the ride is also pretty rickety, just like the Matterhorn. In Disneyland, space and advancements in tech meant that this version of the ride would feature a single track rather than the two tracks in Disney World, and ride vehicles that sat guests side by side, and an overall smoother ride due to a new tubular steel track design. The Disneyland version also has better effects, and they're able to do more substantial overlays due to the projection tech they have. When Disney World gives Space Mountain an overlay for holidays or after-hours events like the pitch black version during the Villains After Hours event, it's mostly just a change in the soundtrack, or they just straight up turn out the lights. In Disneyland, they can create a whole new storyline with changes to warning videos shown in the queue along with projections on the ride. Plus, they've got a better sound system with speakers built right into the ride vehicle. Disneyland can transform the ride into Hyperspace Mountain with projections of TIE fighters and Admiral Akbar warning guests about the ride's sudden drops. And this happened most recently to celebrate the opening of Galaxy's Edge and the release of Rise of Skywalker. Ghost Galaxy, another popular version of the ride that has been around for Halloween seasons in years past over there in Disneyland, features intergalactic ghost projections that chase riders through the mountain. And FYI, y'all, it is super scary. I do not want to ride Ghost Galaxy anymore. It really freaked me out. So simple answer, the Disneyland version is newer, albeit by only 2 years, but that means advancements in tech, which result in an overall different, and sometimes people would say better, ride than the one in Disney World. Next thing that might need a little explaining, why are fast passes for some rides gone before I get a chance to even make one? Well, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Slinky Dog Dash, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and Flight of Passage are some of the most popular rides in all of Walt Disney World. They consistently have those long lines, and fast passes for those rides can go crazy fast, like gone within minutes if you're visiting during a busy time. These are some of the newest rides at the parks, and they still have lines over an hour, and sometimes over 3 hours most of the year. So if you want to ride without a line, you want to have a plan when making your FastPass reservations so you don't miss out. FastPass reservations basically reserve a spot in line for you. You can make a FastPass for a ride and you'll get a 1-hour window of time when you can ride by using the FastPass line, which has limited capacity. Everyone with a park ticket can make these reservations. It's not reserved for hotel guests, though if you're staying at a Disney resort, you do get the perk of booking early. If you're staying at an on-site Disney hotel or at a hotel that is partnered with Disney, you'll be able to make FastPass reservations for your trip 60 days ahead of your arrival day. If you're staying at an off-site hotel or just an annual pass holder coming from home, you will only get to make those FastPasses 30 days out from when you'll visit the parks. New FastPasses will be released at 7 a.m. Eastern, so make sure you're up bright and early. On-site guests, you can make reservations for your whole trip 60 days out from arrival day. Off-site guests and pass holders need to make reservations 30 days out from each park day, so they need to get up early multiple times in a row if they're visiting Disney World more than one day. The number of fast passes for each ride per day are limited, and when they're all booked up, they're gone, sort of. We do recommend that you keep checking back up until the day you're in the park. People change plans all the time and may cancel a fast pass for Slinky Dog even right up until the time they were going to ride. Yeah, you might be able to score a fast pass 5 minutes before the window opens, so keep checking back. If you're getting close to your park date and you still haven't gotten a fast pass, you might want to consider a backup plan to avoid waiting in long lines. Hit those popular rides right when the parks open. You'll want to arrive at least 30 minutes before the official opening time to get into the park and get a good spot in the crowd. Some parks even start lining people up before the opening. We see this a lot in Animal Kingdom at Flight of Passage. The line could be upwards of an hour just before the park even opens, so get there early if you want to be the first ones on the ride. Alternatively, if you don't mind missing parades or fireworks, ride during the shows. Parades and nighttime shows pull most of the park's crowds, so if you've seen them before, use that time to ride with lower weights, or hop in line just before park close. The lines will stay open until the posted park close time, so if you hop in line 1 minute before close, you're gonna get to ride. If you don't mind spending some extra cash, you can also opt to buy a ticket to one of Disney World's after-hours events. These events get you access to the parks after they close to regular day guests, so capacity is very limited here, but lines for rides are much shorter. These events are pricey, but we've made a video that breaks down whether or not they're a good value to help you decide if it's a good option for your travel group. You can check that out right here. So there are a few things in Disney World that need some explaining, and don't worry, if you liked this video, we've got several more coming up where we're trying to explain some things that a lot of people don't understand, sometimes even us, so we're doing our research to figure it out for you. Thank you guys for listening, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we will see you real soon.